Alrighty. Is that how I want to start, Phil? Do I want to say alrighty?
I think it goes well with all the famous Australian champions and fighters we're going to be talking about in this episode.
Is that
None of them.
Do they say alrighty in Australia?
It sounded like your Australian accent.
Hello?
Oh, God.
Welcome to another episode of Heavy Hands. I think we've come out the other side of cabin fever madness, Phil. I don't know about you. Feeling all right today. Pretty good. And maybe that's because, actually, I'm going to get to watch one of my favorite fighters of all time. And you don't even get to talk shit about him because it's one of his extremely common, exciting performances. Hold that thought. Welcome to Heavy Hands. I'm your host, Connor Ebush. That person barely holding back his derision is Phil McKenzie, my co-host. And we are doing another commentary episode for you all. This was a topic suggested by Phil. How did you phrase it, Phil? Unconventional champions?
I think that's the one.
So we're going to be watching the title-winning performances of... basically, the thing is this really struck me when you suggested the theme. And I was like, okay, let's look at this little graphic. You know, it shows all of the champions on a timeline. There's not that many. Like, this is a young as hell sport. There's just not that many champions, and most of them don't stick out as unconventional, which I mean, obviously that's what makes them unconventional, but there aren't many that could be described as unconventional. There's maybe 4 or 5 max that have styles that are really markedly weird for their divisions. But we found 3 of them, and I'm most excited for the one we'll be watching first. That is my boy, my one true love, Lyoto Machida, and his title-winning performance against Rashad Evans. Very much looking forward to revisiting that one. I've watched it many times, of course, but it's been a while. And then after that, we are also going to talk about the title-winning performances of Ben Henderson, truly one of the strangest champions. Ooh, you know who we didn't consider? Tyron Woodley.
Yeah, no, I did consider him.
You just didn't mention it at all.
No,
Ben Henderson,
I did not.
Of all these guys, Ben Henderson is sort of the most of the Tyron Woodley mold, perhaps, as a champion. Like a really weird negative style. Lyoto Machida probably would have fit that bill as well if he had a longer reign. But Ben Henderson actually managed to sit on that throne for a while and become a really weird, like, negative fighter. But I still love Ben Henderson, and I even enjoy watching the fights during his title reign. And as you said just before, insisted, in fact, his title-winning performance against Frankie Edgar is quite impressive. So we will see the truth of that matter. And then our final fight we're going to be watching is Dominick Cruz, who won his bantamweight title back in the Zuffa-owned WEC. And were we correct in our guess, Phil? Was it Brian Bowles that he beat to take the crown?
Yeah, I believe it was. Bowles had just knocked out Miguel Torres, knocking him off his long WEC winning streak. One
of these days we'll have to do something about Miguel Torres. Someone who had a Mike Brown-esque rapid fall that served to like make him quickly forgotten, but genuinely had a much longer time on top than Mike Brown ever enjoyed, and really was a great fighter. So one of these days. But anyway, I guess we should cut to the chase. This video we're using UFC Fight Pass. So if you have access to that service, or I guess you can watch all the shit on the ESPN whatever as well, if you are a rube and you pay for 2 services. We're going to be starting this video at 14 minutes and 30 seconds, which is the very beginning of round 1. So if you're using a different file, if you've got it, I don't know, DVR or something on your TV from some UFC flashback type show or whatever, just get yourself right to the start of round 1, and you should be more or less with us as we talk our way through this. So let's cut to it. Phil, you ready?
I'm indeed.
All right. We're watching Machida versus Evans in 3, 2, 1, play. We are about to witness, Phil, the birth of the Machida era.
So that's one of the interesting things about these particular fights, is that because MMA is so young, every time you see someone, particularly someone win a title with a kind of crazy, unique style, it always leaves this indelible imprint where you're thinking, is this the future?
This is the future, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, the strongest time I can actually remember thinking this in recent memory was probably Dillashaw Barao, right?
Yes, definitely. That was the Neo footwork craze. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But this was just like someone getting torn apart with combination punches. In-out footwork, stance shifting, and just a meat and potatoes jab and low kick game, just getting absolutely pulverized. And this is the most historic and infamous example of when people thought this might be what the future looked like, because this is officially the welcome to the Machida era fight.
Well, genuinely, Dillashaw Barao does actually feel like it was much more predictive of the kind of fighters we still see coming into the UFC than this. Mm-hmm. Although, to be fair, I just think this is a more specialized game that Lyoto Machida plays. It's very specialized. It also takes a very specific temperament, which I think is particularly rare in MMA. Like, I think a pure counter puncher is a pretty rare thing in boxing. Someone who just really relies on their patience. But in MMA, like, this is not a patient man's sport. This is like, you just go out there and try to smash. So I just think, this, but the Lyoto Machida style is echoed in the games of, like, karate guys still have a special niche in MMA, and I think they probably always will. Like, this is as far as striking is concerned, this is a particularly long range sport. We've talked about this before, but there's a reason that the guys like Stephen Thompson, that like Michael Venom Page, that I don't know who else are our karate guys.
Gunnar
Nelson, right? That these like wait for that fighters who wait for that big blitz or that big counter from really far away. They have success still. I just think they'll never proliferate the same way that the like Dillashaw clones will.
Yep. And the reason I would like to point out, the reason why we've been able to have this kind of conversation about this fight is that nothing has happened so far.
Machida has landed a few kicks. Here we go. There was the first counter.
Yep.
He looked for a counter left hand as Rashad was forced to answer his 2 or 3 kicks with one of his own.
This is one of the examples of a bad Greg Jackson game plan, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because they specifically told Rashad to wait out Machida. And I think it's hard to think of... I mean, you were just literally not going to break this man's patience. It is impossible.
Yeah.
There are few fights which it's more likely to...
Ooh. Nice little setup there. See, Machida just spends 4 minutes just planting the idea of that left kick, and then that beloved little karate trick, throwing a short punch off the same side the kick came from, knocks Rashad down.
Was that a right hand?
It was a short left hand off the left kick.
Yeah.
That's something that Stephen Thompson still does. Like, all these guys still have that little move in their arsenal, and it is very tricky to defend against, honestly.
Yeah, so basically, Rashad's... In an empty fight, Rashad is just simply not as well trained in it as Machida is. He's not as good as picking up tiny little cues to indicate when rhythm should be broken, and he's not as good as feinting when he's going to break his rhythm. Machida's other big trick was that he was constantly feinting with his hips and his shoulders, so that you didn't know when he was actually going to commit.
Yeah, there was Rashad finally doing some feinting at the very end of the round. Yeah, it makes you wonder what a nifty little combo that is.
Oh, there was a right hand at the end of it. I thought I saw him.
No, Phil, it was a left.
It was a left, then a right.
Oh.
It was 2 punches.
Yeah. There was a little right hand on the end. Yeah, I mean, so what would be the appropriate strategy for Rashad?
We know what it is. It's throw terrible low kicks.
Right. That's the thing, is you're fighting Machida. You need to fill that space. You need to give him a reason. If your point is to say, okay, this guy's really good on the counter, I want to make him lead, I don't disagree with that analysis. Like Greg Jackson, he hit upon the key node, as he would put it, in this fight. Do not let Lyoto Machida draw you into counters. Cool. Mm-hmm. The way to go about doing that is not to do nothing, which is what Rashad has done so far. The way to go about that is to fill the space with low-risk activity so that Machida has to do something, because that is Machida's own game, and one that Rashad could genuinely compete with him at, or at least have a better shot. Machida also, that's how he gets people to lead. He wants to poke, do very little, but just enough for them to know, okay, I'm being outstruck, I need to take a risk.
Yeah.
And instead, Rashad comes out round 2. Nothing different. We are seeing some feints.
Rashad is clearly kind of shook.
Yes.
Because when Machida feinted forward, you could see him just skitter backwards.
Yeah. There's that left body kick again. Machida going for one of his patented clinch takedowns. Always loved that aspect of his game.
Yeah, very opportunistic. He was just using it to as a safety valve after throwing the body kick.
That is also an element of his game that maybe his exact style isn't replicated very often, but it makes me think of like the takedown game of Alexander Gustafsson. There are other strikers who it's just a matter of timing and just Max Holloway will do this. Like hit a takedown. Yeah. It's never a bad idea if there's an easy one open to you. It's never a bad idea in MMA to just hit a quick takedown and then get up. Just more for the opponent to think about. Sorry, go
on. Yeah, I mean it's similar to that. Also to his step knee. Mm-hmm. He's always got his posture up and ready to hit the underhooks as he's coming in. But yeah, we saw then the Stephen Thompson problem in that Machida was able to flurry on Rashad, but because Rashad just bit down and fired back, Machida doesn't really have any defense in the pocket, and he actually got clipped. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to get Rashad killed. But
yes,
we saw
it's not
why him being on offense is bad for him.
Yeah, it's not a pretty finishing sequence we're about to see from Machida. It's not textbook combination punching, shall we say. I also love Machida's stance. I love that he keeps his fucking head back. Like, that is so remarkably rare, even among strikers. Like, his head's far away. He may not have good pocket defense, but it's pretty hard to get to his chin. There's Rashad finally throwing and successfully landing a kick. Granted, I have to give him some credit. Like, the first time he tried that, Machida hit him with the left hand. I understand why he's been reticent since then. Yeah, he is really biting on Machida's feints.
Also, another thing to note, these are tiny light heavyweights by modern standards.
Yes, they are. These are middleweights.
These are not big middleweights by modern standards.
Yeah. That more than anything else makes me nostalgic. Oh. Ooh. Oh, Jesus Christ. That was barely even a counter. It was so anticipatory. Just a little feint, and Rashad bit, and Machida hit him with a perfect left hand, and then a series of slightly less perfect left hands after that. And here's Rashad, famously taunting Machida. Yes. And the stanky leg. Christ. Awful, awful, awful survival instincts from Rashad Evans. Mm-hmm. Truly terrible. In boxing, sometimes you understand why someone doesn't grab on. This is MMA. You are a wrestler. Grab on.
Welcome to the Machida era.
Soon to be ended by a completely shot Shogun Hua.
To be fair, I think the Machida 1 is the last of the last of Shogun's prime. He came in looking pretty incredible in that fight.
In their first fight, yeah.
Yeah.
And then he had like his final, oh my god, such a pretty left hand that started the exchange.
Yeah.
And then this, not quite so attractive.
At least we don't have to look at Rashad face. Or do we?
Oh, we're going to see it, baby. And zoom in on Rashad face.
Nope.
We didn't quite get the right
Did
angle.
they cut it out?
I think it may have.
I kind of wouldn't be that upset by that. Like, maybe it was in Rashad's contract if he was going to work with the UFC and any other thing. He was just like, look, I just want all instances of Rashad's face off. Any...
That would be a brilliant addition
UFC
to the contract.
platforms.
No, he would have had to have a good agent or a good manager for that to happen. We know those aren't
this is a good point.
Those aren't very common. Oh, is this where we get it? Hold on. We're exclusively now continuing to watch this just to see if we get Rashad face.
Yeah, sick man, Connor.
This is such...
But now I'm... For anyone who hasn't seen it, this is the...
No, we didn't get it.
It can be found easily on Google. It is the stupidest knockout face that anyone has ever had in this sport, I think.
It was.
It's very sad, because I do like Rashad.
Is it possible you have to... Me too, by the way. I've always liked Rashad Evans. I think he's a very intelligent, charming, insightful guy. And I always enjoyed watching him just effortlessly and coolly clown on Rampage Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible that we've reached a point in time where you have to, like, contextualize Rashad face for MMA fans? That kind of makes me sad, because it was MMA's crying Jordan. Like, that shit was, inescapable. People would, like, put, like, a transparent version of it in the background of other memes just for kicks. You couldn't get away from Rashad face.
I think the best one was when someone photoshopped it onto the Thriller GIF.
Fuck. I shouldn't have been drinking. Never drink while talking about Rashad face. Well, there we go. We saw the beginning of the Machida era. You know what? Like, kind of a perfect performance. Like, it ends in a finish, so it's more exciting than some. Than many. Phil, I'll say before Phil gets the chance. But despite that, a quintessential Lyoto Machida fight. Like, the singular way... And that's kind of I guess that's kind of the theme for this episode as well. Like, these are very singular fighters. They're not super adaptable in that, like, they really lock into a particular way of winning fights. A particular and unique way. And that was the whole Lyoto Machida thing right there. You know, like, keep long range, pepper the other guy with kicks. If he really does nothing, maybe you try to build a little bit off the kicks. Otherwise, you put the scare in him. Good. Now you just have to try and get him to come forward and walk into the left hand. That's the whole Machida ethos in that fight right there.
Yeah. I mean, and you can see why people used to love it, because it made, sort of similar to what we talked about with Danny, it made the sport look like it was clean and understandable.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it kind of wasn't, but it's still very interesting.
Yeah. But it's like a both scientific and artistic approach to it's a scientific and or artistic way that MMA can be played. And it still does function. The Lyoto Machida style, it still does have its icons, and I suspect it pretty much always will. I don't think it'll ever take over the sport. There will be no Machida era. Most of these guys will probably never win championships. But the legacy of, like, a karate style. I mean, we've talked about guys like Kyoji Horiguchi and Robert Whittaker as sort of hybrid Machidas. That is still a style that absolutely has its place in this sport. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, which one are we going to do next? Ben Henderson versus Frankie Edgar 1?
I think that's the one.
All right, after this.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to this week's Heavy Hands. If you like what you hear, please consider pledging to support the podcast on Patreon. Patreon is basically continuous crowdfunding. You sign up to contribute a certain amount per month to help us with production costs and the like, and in return you get rewards ranging from a mention on the Heavy Hands website to a question or topic of your choice being discussed on the show. We have a lot more in the works to reward you for your help, and we appreciate every contribution. No amount is too small. Just head over to patreon.com and find how you can help out, the only show dedicated to the finer points of face punching. Now let's get back to it.
Okay, welcome back to Heavy Hands. This one is going to be a long one because, weirdly enough, I think our only finish of this day will be Lyoto Machida's. We are now watching Ben Henderson versus Frankie Edgar at UFC 144. And round one of this fight, if you're using Fight Pass, begins just about at 9 minutes, 5 seconds. So that is where we have queued ourselves up to. If you're watching again on another file or platform, just get yourself right to the point when they're about to touch gloves. They're just coming out of their corners. And we will start on go. In 3, 2, 1, go. So this one will have plenty more time to break things down.
It'll also have more happening in it.
Yes, instantly. Ben Henderson's famous jab.
Also, the size disparity here is absolutely comical.
Yes. Does Ben Henderson still look like a modern lightweight? He's still pretty big, I think, for this division. Because he's not
He's a lightweight, welterweight tweener.
He's not just much taller than Frankie Edgar here. He is like, the man's entire body is quite packed with muscle. He's got some of the biggest legs.
This is someone who would fight at welterweight against someone who would fight at bantamweight.
Yeah.
Or at least is going to try and fight at bantamweight.
Yeah. This is a guy who beat Jorge Masvidal at welterweight.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So basically, I did like the fact that when this fight felt like it could have ended really early if that like spinning jump kick that Bendo had gone for had actually landed.
Yeah.
But yeah, the main thing here is I think the main dynamic here is going to be can Edgar put out enough offense to stop the attritive damage from Bendo's body kicks adding up over time. And this was a fight that I think I scored for Edgar the first time I watched it because I'm an idiot.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
And I think I just refused to score body kicks.
Yeah. I think that's the thing a lot of people go through is when they just only pay attention to headshots. It's not.
So I think uncommon. I just wanted Frankie to win.
Yeah, I think I think at the time my feeling was that Frankie Edgar did win, but that I hated him, so I was happy.
Good, excellent.
I've since come around on Frankie Edgar, whom I now like and have a lot of respect for his game, but I'm not sure that he wins this fight anymore, so isn't that fun? Yeah, how would you describe... The thing is, Ben Henderson's style... How much did it change, actually, when he became a champ? Like, how much did it really transform? Or was it just that people started to get a read on him, so it was like... It started to feel less dynamic and unpredictable?
I think we definitely saw him becoming more of a striker.
Yeah.
And a weird striker. I mean, it is sort of the John Jones evolution, where he became a weird range kickboxer, whereas before he was much more of just a clinch wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think it was an evolution, and we saw that if he felt he had a major wrestling advantage, he was happy to push it.
Sure,
absolutely beat the crap out of Diaz.
Big knee to the body from Ben Henderson there.
Yeah, this is the thing, is that it's weird. Bendo was a fight, he's just one of those fighters which makes you realize how much of this kind of thing is body language. Because he would win fights off scoring offense, which doesn't get scored very well in MMA. Like body kicks and like just kicking offense in general, if you're not kicking people in the head.
So he's winning this round. Nice little uppercut hook combo there, right? From Ben. I think so. Yeah. He's just landed the hardest shots. Frankie Edgar's had a couple of good moments.
That's his. I mean, that uppercut left straight is like one of his. I mean, it's an MMA lab specialty, right?
Oh, but that one was a left uppercut right hook.
Yeah, that is different.
That's why I noticed it. Yeah, he loves that big like corkscrew long lead uppercut to the left straight, and always has. But it was actually an extremely good read on a combination that works.
Oh, the shovel hook thing, yeah.
It still works against Frankie Edgar. It's exactly the kind of shots that Korean Zombie just deaded Frankie Edgar with most recently.
And that Gray Maynard almost deaded him with as well.
Yes, it was a good read.
Wow. But Edgar is still a remarkable wrestler.
Yeah.
The fact that he's chucked Bendo down twice, I mean, hasn't led to anything, but
those little moments, like right there, honestly, I do think that was a fairly close round. Edgar got in more shots to the head. He had a couple of really solid looking low kicks. He scored 2 takedowns with no control. So how much regard you give those is questionable. Close though, but that moment right there at the end of the round, Frankie Edgar touches Ben Henderson with a shot on the head, and Ben has so much swagger. He is the king of bullshit. He just you see the shot land, and then he reacts in this perfectly convincingly casual way. So many fighters react when they get hit, and you're like, bullshit. There's something about the way Ben Henderson no-sells a clean strike that you're like, oh, it must have. You immediately reevaluate how effectively the strike landed. You're like, it must have not been bad. He didn't give a shit. He was, in fact, disdainful of the strike that just hit him. He and Anderson Silva, to my mind, are the kings of that element of fighting in MMA.
Oh, yeah.
Just the kings of optics. Quite an aggressive performance from Ben Henderson. Ooh, they trade shots there.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's realized, he's got a physical edge. He may as well try and enforce it. But Bendo's never really been a particularly comfortable pressure fighter unless he's got a really significant wrestling edge. I mean, he has had some good pressuring performances. I mean, I think probably his best one is maybe Cerrone 3, which I think most people think he won.
Oh, I agree. I really think he got robbed in that one. Nice right hook counter from Ben Henderson.
Yeah. Not often a great lead hand striker, but his hook is definitely much better than his jab.
Oh, yes. He does not know how to throw a jab. His elbow is so far out. It's like, if your goal is just to put something in the other guy's face and make him wary, if he respects that, then I guess that's fine. He can see it coming every time, but Ben's not trying to land it. So he doesn't really care. He just wants to pump it out so he can enforce distance, and then, oh my God.
Oh dear.
Unbelievable balance. Just winging Todd Duffy style right hooks from on one leg.
Yeah. So yeah. This one of the big dynamics of the fight, right, is that Edgar kept catching kicks.
But couldn't do shit with them.
But he was just absorbing them.
Yeah.
And he couldn't get anything done afterwards anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I remembered scoring that. I was kind of I was young and stupid. I remembered scoring that as defense for Edgar, and then in retrospect, it's not really, is it?
Yeah, there is a way to catch kicks. I mean, if you step into the not into, but along the arc of the kick as you catch it, you can take most of the steam off of it. But Edgar has not done that once. He is just eating the kick.
He got a lot better at it in the rematch.
Yeah, for sure. But so far, he is just eating these body kicks full on and then grabbing the leg and usually not getting anything done with it, or as in the case we just saw, losing the exchange that results.
Yeah. This fight also has a vile up kick at some point, right?
I think that might be the rematch.
Is that the rematch? Yeah, maybe you're
right. He
just
completely destroys Edgar's nose. The obligatory Frankie Edgar nose destruction.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's clear he's having a big effect on Edgar. Like, he is giving Frankie this feeling of range enforcement. Though, to be fair, like, Frankie does have to come in, and like 3 times already in this round, if not 4 or 5, he has hit Edgar with a pretty nice right hook as he's trying to surge into the pocket.
Yep. Ooh, Edgar should regret not going after that opportunity there. I think that's just that clinch break. That's exactly the kind of place where you would expect Edgar to attack, but I think he's just, he doesn't feel comfortable because Bendo is just such a weird guy.
Yep. Frankie got in a pretty decent overhand right there. Bendo no-sold the shit out of it and then immediately was like, I'm going to come in and land a better-looking shot. And is now trying to do that. There's that counter right hook again.
Yeah.
Not super clean that time, but it's actually it's worked quite well. Ooh, decent right hands from Edgar.
Yeah, if you can get Bendo in boxing exchanges with him, that was the combination we were calling out earlier. Mm-hmm. That was the lead uppercut, left straight.
Also a favorite of Conor McGregor.
Yeah, very true.
It's the Prince Naz combo.
And this is Edgar's first real top control, which unfortunately comes quite late in the round. Again, it's not an unclose round, but it's one that I would struggle to give to Edgar, to be honest.
Yeah. I agree, because even though Edgar actually landed significantly better shots in this round than in the first. Oh, is this the up kick? Does it come in this fight? It could be. Oh. Oh, there it is. You were right. Ugh. Undeniably a Ben Henderson round now. Sickening shot. And this too, this is optics. Look how just visibly he sells out throwing these body shots. None of them was even that clean. But he makes such a show of landing full power shots to a...
He hulks up before he lands them.
To a clearly hurt fighter that you're like, oh my god. No one else could have possibly won that round. I don't care what happened before. Ben Henderson is the king of this shit. Man, that shot disgusted me the first time I saw it. We're going to see now.
It's when we see the replay. Yeah, here we go.
Oh. Just about, spread his nose across his forehead. Ugh.
Oh.
That's the
amount of times that Frankie Edgar has really clearly gotten knocked out and then just come back from it.
Yeah.
In his UFC career.
His legs go completely limp there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the strike that kids used to tell you would kill you instantly, in middle school. So when I first saw that, I was taken aback.
If Henderson did that to me, it would kill me instantly.
It's true. You have one advantage over Frankie Edgar, though, which is that you're very tall. And it might actually have difficulty reaching your nose. Okay, so round 3, and I think one round which was probably Ben Henderson's, very likely, and one which was incontrovertibly his.
Yep.
So is this indicative of the Ben Henderson champion style? He certainly became, I think, more risk-averse than this. This is a real bullying performance so far. He's really trying to press that mental pressure, make Frankie Edgar feel it.
I don't know. I think the extent to which Benson Henderson neutralizes people is a little underplayed. I mean, a little overplayed. 'Cause I find it hard to think of a fight that he has had which is actually like genuinely bad or low volume.
I agree. I actually think his fight with Gilbert Melendez holds up. It's still a very good fight.
It's a great fight. The Diaz fight, as mentioned, is just a whooping. The Thompson fight, again, like, you could argue that Thompson wins it, but that would be entirely off grappling control. All the striking aggression comes from Bendo.
Yeah. Edgar is winning this round so far, by the way. He has landed 3 or 4 nice right hands, and there was one good counter left hook as Bendo just got dug way too deep into his combination through a really slow, predictable, like left-right combo, and Edgar interrupted him. Another counter right hand.
In some ways, Edgar needs to get his nose broken to wake up.
Right. Oh.
Oof.
There was another good counter right hand in there by Edgar, but then Bendo just exchanged.
Yeah, body kick, right hand, left hand.
Yeah, I think the thing that makes, because what I'm trying to grapple with here is he has keyed in on that bullshit jab of Bendo's. I'll tell you that much. In this round, he has countered it with the right hand over and over. Henderson with the opportunism there.
Yep.
Nice. Fighting hard for a takedown.
I can't remember how the grappling exchanges went in this fight.
Right? But you certainly do not want Ben Henderson on top of you.
No. The extent to which Frankie Edgar has managed to leverage a grappling game at weight classes that he really didn't belong at, it's genuinely remarkable.
It's the whole treating your entire wrestling phase as a jab to be worked off of. Not having the expectation of controlling people. There was another really nice right hand in there by Frankie Edgar. I think he's definitely winning this round. So I'm trying to wrap my head around what is it that makes Ben Henderson unconventional. What is it that makes his style weird? And I think it's just that it's not altogether that functional a game without the mind control.
Mm-hmm.
Like, without the mental warfare, it's technically lacking in a lot of areas. Oh, another nice counter by Frankie Edgar. He doesn't, the pieces of it don't chain together all that well. That's a real big thing, I think, is like Ben Henderson is actually quite adept. He has some really good skills on the feet. He has some great skills on the ground. He has some really good wrestling skills. How do they connect to each other is a big question. And so I think that's the thing, is that you watch him, like, his reign was defined by fights that were all very close and competitive. Ones that he just narrowly won largely by virtue of the fact that he could convince the opponent or the judges that he was being more successful than he really was.
Yeah, it's what makes the Masvidal fight so hilarious.
Because Masvidal's exactly the guy that happens to.
Yeah. Because, Masvidal is the incredible technician who tries to no-sell offense and does exactly the opposite.
Right.
Whereas Bendo has a toolkit full of odd, janky stuff, but just makes it look like it's the slickest shit out there.
Yep. Well, Frankie Edgar's face is about halfway through the Raiders of the Lost Ark transformation now.
Mm-hmm.
It's about 30% melted off his skull, but I think he definitely won round 3.
I still think it was close.
Do you?
There were a lot of those. It was a lot of exchanging.
Yeah.
And I think it's just hard for him to win because, like you said, it's just the optics of the moments, like when they'll lock up and then Bendo will just like toss him to one side and swag out away from it. But I think he probably won that round.
I'm just curious about the stats. They won't make the argument for me. We're about to start round 3 here, listeners. So in that round, Fight Metric does have Ben Henderson outlanding Frankie Edgar by 2 strikes. 15-13.
It was close. Like I said, there was a lot of exchanging going on.
Mm-hmm. I thought that Frankie's were the cleaner, more telling blows, but certainly not a big margin statistically speaking. The thing is like that's like the margin for every single round in this fight.
Mm-hmm.
The largest gulf between them is round 2. Probably the difference made by those big body shots on the ground at the end, and that was 17 significant strikes landed for Frankie Edgar to 23 from Ben Henderson. A margin of 6 is the biggest gulf between statistics in the entire fight. Oh, I'm sorry. Round 4. We're about to see a gulf of 7. So how does Ben Henderson, what we're looking at now, how does Ben Henderson solve the clearly increased difficulty he had with Edgar's countering in that round? What we see right there is him feinting, pulling back, and trying to re-counter Frankie Edgar.
Mm-hmm.
Hitting the body, mixing up his targets.
Yeah, he's kind of bailed on the kicks for a bit. Oh,
there we go.
No, he hasn't. That's it. Solid technique. Some good dandazo there.
That's right. Just a nice... It's one of those really hurtful looking kicks. Do you look at the way he throws his body into that?
Ooh.
That was a full bodied, no pivot. He just planted his weight. A real Dutch style cup kick.
Yep.
This is one instance where Frankie Edgar really should have taken the time. You're not going to...
Maybe he felt like... He probably felt like he could... Ooh, that was a classic Edgar combination.
Very nice. Yeah, the double right hand from Frankie Edgar. That one landed clean. He probably felt like, Ben Henderson was going to tire out?
Yeah.
I mean, that's usually his thought process, but it doesn't really happen to Bendo.
No.
He's incredibly fit as a fighter. And I'm not talking about his cardio.
He's a handsome man.
All right, let's pause the fight and just talk about what's your favorite physical feature of Ben Henderson's? I like his hair. Oh,
those beautiful almond eyes. Oh, disgusting.
Oh, yeah. Knee. What a lovely transition. The knee invited the takedown. He's locked hard.
This would work on almost anyone else.
Right.
Because this is a tight guillotine from a man who is very good at guillotining people.
Yep. And nigh impossible to choke himself. That's always been one of my favorite qualities of Ben Henderson is that he's not like one of those thick-necked fighters. You just can't choke the man out. For whatever reason.
Yep.
I think it's because he's so calm that he can just outlast pretty much any choke that's put on him. Nice elbows on the ground, and Bendo's back to his feet. That was a very good-looking exchange for him. Spent very little time actually on his back when he wasn't locked onto a choke. The exchange was initiated by a really clean, hard knee to the body from Bendo. Now he's going a little side stance, looks for a hook kick.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not an enjoyable. It's not an enjoyable fight for Bendo because I think he really would like more breaks.
Sure,
and he's not getting them.
But he's not allowing himself to try to take breaks either. It's quite a, I don't know, like a disciplined performance. Like I think he feels that if he takes time off, Edgar is going to pull ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, quite an aggressive showing from him. He's pretty much on the front foot like 90% of the time in this fight.
Another big knee on the break, and another one of those right hands as Edgar was coming in. I think Edgar's looking a bit hurt at the moment. I'm not sure why, but
landed a decent right hand of his own there, though.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that even functioning on, Edgar being hurt is a strange, sometimes he's just a better fighter when he's going on autopilot. But yeah, he does respond to strikes pretty badly when he gets hit a lot of the time.
Yeah.
His head just jerks back and his already crushed nose will start spraying blood or whatever. He's the guy that when you hit him, it's very apparent. Whereas another thing about Bendo is that he's never marked up. He's never cut.
Yeah, right.
Nothing ever looks like anything is happening to him.
It's a helpful, having the adamantium skin is a helpful asset when you're relying so much on just convincing everyone watching that you're doing really well.
It is also like a hilarious aspect for other fighters who don't have it, because I remember seeing things when people would say things like, how can you think GSP won against Hendricks? Look at his face after the fight.
Right,
be like, look at his face after most of his fights.
Yeah, right.
It always looks like that.
Look at his face after he absolutely crushes someone. It still looks bad. Fedor had the same kind of face, same kind of skin.
Tissue paper skin.
Yep.
That was nice. He said, have you got 5 good minutes? And he said, I got 15.
I love that. The confidence of Ben Henderson, man. I just don't know how people don't like this guy. I don't get it.
No.
I guess I can understand some people being annoyed by the extreme Christianity of every single post-fight speech, but he's very sincere and earnest. He's not one of those.
Yeah.
You're not one of those hateful in-groupy type of evangelical Christians or whatever. He seems like a very nice, accepting person.
Yeah, I mean, he's, he worked in his mum's Korean grocery while he was still champion, I think.
He's a likable guy. He's got a good story.
And he's always in his teammate's corner. You can tell. You could hear him.
I would want Ben Henderson in my corner.
Yeah.
He's got a big, deep voice, and he really believes in you, and he's loud as hell. I would absolutely want Ben Henderson hyping me and giving me instruction in my corner. Seems like a great teammate. I like Ben Henderson a lot. Man, just the optics. Frankie Edgar's face is a ruin. And Ben Henderson still looks so much bigger. Possibly he looks larger than he did at the start of the fight because Edgar has taken so much damage. He's still the aggressor.
Yeah.
Ooh!
Edgar is deflated slightly from the blood. That was a lovely left hook from Edgar.
A very clean left hook from Frankie. And yet, there is this feeling that Ben Henderson is in control, that Edgar has to do something, but another nice right hand in the transition. That was a very Frankie Edgar right hand. And a lovely foot sweep. Do you think Frankie would have more success here if he didn't respect that Kimura threat quite so much? Because Bendo has gotten out of a lot of rear waist cinches with that threat alone.
I mean, it may just be that Bendo is just much stronger than him.
Yeah,
he just immediately recognizes that. I don't know. It's hard to say. In general, I feel like both of these guys are respecting their opponent on the back foot probably a bit more than they should.
Yeah.
Neither of them are particularly strong if they're forced backwards.
There was a nice right hook to the body there from Frankie, too. So far, this has been a pretty good round for him. I think it's actually their rematch that I always felt Frankie Edgar definitely won, but didn't care because I didn't like him at the time it happened. But that's the one.
The rematch I remember is a pretty clear Frankie win.
It's a really good performance from him because he clearly builds on the things that worked here. He'd watched the study. It's a lot more counter punching. It's a lot more body punching. And he does a much better job of actually neutralizing those kicks that he catches.
Yep. Yeah, it's a great rematch performance.
Yeah, but already he has picked up on things over the course of this fight. Or perhaps it's, I don't know, knowing Frankie Edgar, maybe it's better to say that Mark Henry has picked up on things and instructed him.
I think it's Edgar. We've seen this enough from him that he's a very thoughtful fighter.
Ooh. And he knocks Ben Henderson down.
Mm-hmm.
Just a weird little punch that Ben did not see. Like a short right hand off of a left hook, I think that was. And gets up looking as if he has never been knocked down in his life.
Yeah.
So much so that watching it live might have been like, that was a slip, right?
Yeah. Because you could see him just, even as he got knocked down, he was just looking at him like in disbelief. Like, what was that? Not in disbelief, like, what just hit me? But like,
yeah.
Ugh, really?
The thing, man, every single one of these rounds, close. That is the Ben Henderson era. It's just thin margins.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the thing, is that he had no primary weapon, really.
Exactly,
what was Bendo's big threat?
He's kind of good at everything, but not all of it really fits together. Like, how impressive he looks depends a lot on what you give to him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just sort of filled the spaces between with, like, weird ideas that he seems to have just hit upon.
Yeah, there was just tons and tons of stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to throw calf kicks when I'm clinched up against the fence. I'm going to punch Nate Diaz's thigh. I'm going to do, someone's going to catch my kick, and I'm going to do a flying, nice knee. And a really, Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Just hulked out of a takedown attempt and hauled Frankie Edgar off his feet with a guillotine. But I think that was definitely a Frankie Edgar round. I think Frankie Edgar 3 and 5.
I don't think he had any definite rounds.
He landed all the clean head strikes, and I don't think Ben Henderson.
He got flying kneed twice in the face, twice in like the last minute.
That's fair. I think he had the better looking head strikes, a greater quantity of them. There were a couple of really clean punches to the head.
I was going to give him that round until that bit right at the end.
Yeah. I think I would give 3 and 5 of this to Frankie Edgar, and they were all so close.
Yeah.
But I genuinely think, especially in the early going.
Yeah, I think I'd probably give it 48-47 to Bender. I could see an argument for, I could see an argument for 50-45, but I don't think it's a particularly strong one.
Yeah. In the early going, it was like so much aggression from Ben Henderson, like, and so much bullshit aggression. Like, a lot of it didn't really have to be respected, but you could see that he had an effect on Frankie Edgar's temperament. And then I think, like, a really nice adjustment from Ben after a relatively rough...
Actually, he did drop him, so I guess I got to give it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What a weird exchange.
Yeah.
You can see, look at the expression on his face.
Ben Henderson literally pauses to, like, scratch at his foot, implying, oops, I slipped.
Yeah.
There was something on my foot. Yeah, great instincts for no selling. But the thing is like a really nice adjustment from Ben Henderson, because I think Edgar looked like he may have been poised to start at least figuring out the tactics that could let him take over the fight in round 3. And then Bendo came out in round 4 and started drawing Edgar into more counters and went back to his kicking. And Frankie Edgar really does not like being countered. He does not like being forced to come forward and hit with counters. So, good fight, man. That was fun.
Yeah. Like I said, I think Bendo, he's generally pretty fun to watch. As long as you're not a super technique purist who's going to be upset by his jab. And if you are, that's fine. I think he's generally just like a fun, intelligent, weird, interesting guy to watch. And the same is true of pretty much all the guys we're watching today.
Look how unswole Joe Rogan looks.
Yeah, that's very true.
Very strange. All right. Well, on that note, let's take one more break. When we come back, Dominick Cruz versus Brian Bowles. After this.
Financial support is fantastic, but there are other, even easier ways to support Heavy Hands. Perhaps the best is by spreading the word. We know our fan base. You're all cool, popular people with serious social media presences. You're tastemakers and trendsetters. Okay, there are one or two of you that don't fit that description. You know who you are, but no matter what, you can always help us out by telling folks about the show. You can also give us a positive rating and review on iTunes and Stitcher, things like that. We rely on word of mouth and positive feedback to grow and improve, so thank you very much for your time and your help. Now, back to the show.
And welcome back to Heavy Hands. We are moving on to the title-winning fight of Dominick Cruz, who took on Brian Bowles at WEC 47. We will also be starting this one right at the beginning of round 1, which, if you are watching on UFC Fight Pass, starts at 4 minutes and 30 seconds into the video. If not, get yourself to the start of round 1. Both fighters just coming out of their corners, and we will play on go. In 3, 2, 1, go. This one makes me think of Brian Bowles as well, which was sort of a weird little moment.
Yeah.
Bantamweight had a weird history as a division.
Yeah. Because this is, because this was one of the ones where, like, Bowles had taken the hype from Torres. Because Torres had been on this huge undefeated streak, and Bowles had just knocked him out.
Yep.
And Cruz was seen as, like, interesting and good and a fun title fighter, but he was also seen as, like, a feather-fisted decision machine.
Yep.
And Bowles just, was considered, like, just big power. He's a good wrestler. He's going to walk him down and beat him up. I don't think many people were expecting Cruz to win this fight.
Yeah.
He wasn't a prohibitive underdog, but he was definitely, I'm pretty sure he was an underdog.
Let's see if I can find out.
And instead, this would be one of the Cruz masterclasses, because he was built to take apart single-minded punchers who would bite on things.
He closed at plus 180 underdog odds. Brian Bowles closed at minus 300 as the favorite.
That's a little bit stronger than I thought, actually.
Yeah, certainly on the Bowles side.
It was close to even.
Yeah. And we do see Dominick Cruz is so interesting because the mechanics of his footwork, not good. Like a lot of really bad habits that are just completely baked into his style. Look at how much time he spends with his feet either parallel or right next to each other. Backs up, like switches stances as he's retreating. Very risky idea if you get caught in the middle of that as someone is advancing on you. And
he just did.
Yeah. Nice little right hook there. But the concepts of Dominick Cruz's footwork are perfect. And so, like, he was sort of a Jim Corbett, gentleman Jim Corbett moment for MMA in that, yeah, we can look back at like Jim Corbett fighting Bob Fitzsimmons or whatever and be like, okay, this guy is like the origin of like defensive, evasive boxing. This is one of the pioneers of what we would now consider like a foundational boxing style. They've gotten so much better at it since then, but the same exact ideas have just been refined, the exact same concepts, and that's Dominick Cruz. Like, he has an understanding of angles, why they're good, what to do with them. He has an understanding of distance, how to play with it, how to maintain it, how to take it away. It's just that, I think you would look at someone like, I don't know, a TJ Dillashaw or a new model like a Corey Sandhagen or something and be like, okay, this is a cleaner version of this concept.
I think it's also, it's a concept built around this idea that we talked about with Machida, which is the idea that MMA is fought at a longer distance than kickboxing or boxing. You know, if you took that as one of your base premises, you might end up forming a style which looks like Cruz's, because it's not, as we've mentioned a few times, it's not really a striking style, or it doesn't work best as a striking style. Cruz's approach works best as a wrestling style.
Yeah.
It allows the angles that he takes are not necessarily these are striking angles, but he takes them with such a degree of exaggeration that it's when you see him take the outside angle and then suddenly blast through with a double leg, you suddenly see why it works so well.
Yeah.
But he's sort of repurposed these techniques for a sport where everything is big and exaggerated. And in doing that, he has to put a ton of effort into how to make it work. You know, he has to put so much just cardio and energy expenditure and risk into building that style for a big movement kind of approach.
Yep.
And it's something that, I think, again, it's something that gets sort of, as we saw against Garbrandt, can get peeled apart by just fundamentals and a good wrestling defense.
Yep.
But you can see why he built it and why it was so impressive.
Ooh. And for those watching, just so you know, Fight Pass cuts out the space between rounds. So round 2, we are 10 seconds into it right now. It's a very exaggerated. I think that is exactly the way to describe it. But it does sort of work because, like, you are far away. It's like opponents do actually get a read on these moves of Cruz's, and that works because he can then draw you in to the takedown. Without that,
he's got this big vocabulary of angles. It's just all in caps lock.
Oh, yes. Yeah, but without that, without the phase shifting threat, there's decidedly little to worry about as you advance on him, as you close him down. And so you can start coming up with ways to just sort of corral him in or walk him into certain strikes or whatever. But with the addition of that takedown threat, that totally changed so far the way Bowles is approaching this fight. He was having success with those blitzes. He would get Cruz near the fence and then run him down. And then he tried one, and Cruz just got into sort of an ugly takedown and ended up on top. And now Bowles is a lot more reluctant. Meanwhile, Cruz has upped his aggression big time. Brian Bowles' striking is hideous. Let's be real. These big winging right hands that Cruz is able to. It's sort of like watching Luke Rockhold's early opponents, and in exactly the same way, Cruz is actually able to pick them off as a counter striker, even though he's, not all that, especially at this point in his career, not all that nuanced with the counter strikes.
Yeah. There's so many things to like about Cruz's game, but he's, things that he always bangs on about when he's on commentary, for good reason.
Yeah.
When he has people covering up, he will throw combinations until they stop.
Yeah. It's such a unique Cruz thing. I always if you watch a Miles Jury, that sort of stance switching counter, he goes from orthodox into southpaw, shifts backwards, and throws what ends up being a counter lead right hook.
Mm-hmm.
Miles Jury, his entire game is that move. And it really, really demonstrates how particular these techniques are to Cruz's style. His style is built around these techniques. There's a lot of nuance, a lot of layers. Jury doesn't have the same layers. He doesn't have the same activity, not nearly. He doesn't have the same wrestling threat. He tries to build a different style around the same sort of techniques, and it just doesn't work nearly as well.
Yeah, because Cruz has, Cruz is someone who deeply understands that pace wins rounds and pace wins fights.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He will throw, and he will always stress this in his commentary, which is, again, it's a very good thing to stress.
Yeah, and his team is renowned for being addicted to doing cardio.
Mm-hmm.
He's sort of renowned as like a basically a coach when it comes to the stamina of the team, of just pushing people harder and harder on the treadmills or on the bikes or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, he's also constantly mixing up his attack heights. He's constantly throwing in low kicks. He hits the body. He must just be a deeply unpleasant person to fight.
Yes, I can imagine. He hits certain parts of the body, as we just saw there in a replay.
Mm-hmm. Again, always a good thing to do in a championship fight.
Yep. Why not?
Soften the guy up downstairs with a quick kick to the junk.
You get 1 or 2 guaranteed. Why not take them? All right, we are resuming the action. Is Bowles already hurt with whatever the fight-ending injury is?
Yeah, his hand is broken.
Yeah. I wonder how he broke it, throwing those picture-perfect right hands.
It's crazy talk.
Unbelievable. He's shaking it out right now.
What happened to Bowles after this? I mean, I know what happened eventually, the meth and the criminal charges, but did he lose to Benavidez?
He came back. I'm looking at his Wikipedia right now. He beat Damasio Page in a rematch in his first UFC fight, and he beat Takeya Mizugaki. Boo. And then he got submitted.
No, I'm not booing Mizugaki. I'm booing Bowles for beating Mizugaki.
Yeah, I agree with you. And then he got submitted by Uriah Faber and knocked out by George Roop. And that was it. Oh, and he tested positive for elevated testosterone in the George Roop loss.
Ooh, that was a pretty takedown.
Beautiful. Anyone, yeah. The Cruz gets so much shine. I will never tire of like making this distinction. So much shine for his weird striking style, but the most beautiful moment of every single Dominick Cruz fight is a takedown. That was so perfectly timed and like so cleanly finished. People who may have heard a Discord notification there, I'm being called a simp by some friends. I don't know why.
I'm sure you deserved it somehow.
Yeah, I'm simping. I'm not going to deny it. I'm still thinking about Ben Henderson. I'm simping for that beautiful man.
I mean, he's everyone's dream, really. Hardworking, handsome, athletic.
Religious,
loud.
But you're
yeah.
Loud. Just the kind of man you want to take home to mama. Hello, nice to meet you.
What?
Praise the Lord. Yeah, he checks all the boxes.
I would assume that it would just be like him shouting out encouragement for when you've been like cooking food or something.
Yeah.
You're like, nice daughter, nice.
Wow, you really put good color on that mirepoix. Thanks, Ben. Ben, we know, respects the Holy Trinity.
All right, so we've skipped everything in between the fights and also the actual like TKO / corner loss. So all we're seeing is the... Oh, he's wearing a Metal Militia shirt.
Oh, good.
That's not cool.
That's not problematic. God, the MMA gear is so ugly. It looks like absolute shit. I am so embarrassed looking at this man wearing that right now. Like
that one specifically.
Jesus.
Metal Militia specifically is probably something you probably want to avoid.
Questionable for other reasons, but that is like iconography vomit on his shirt. It is disgusting apparel. All right, well, I guess that concludes our latest commentary episode. 3 bizarre champions. Now, if we were to revisit this with these really singular fighters, we could with an episode that may as well be an episode of the MMA Depressed Us. Because if we revisit this topic, Phil, you know who we're watching? Tyron Woodley, Tim Sylvia, and I don't care who else. That's enough. I think we should do it. Or maybe I will do that as a bonus episode because I really need to catch up on bonus episodes. I deeply apologize, by the way, for all of our beloved patrons. Even though it's quarantine and we should all have lots of free time, I just keep having fucking technical issues with trying to do boxing commentaries and stuff, trying to get them to sync with the video. I don't know what changed, but I can no longer get that to come out in a predictable fashion that works. So I'm going to try other types of comment, maybe something like this, where I just record an audio commentary and you can watch Tyron Woodley and Tim Sylvia along with me. So
you're a sick man.
Keep your eyes peeled for that. And then I'm also planning with a member of the Vaping Scooter Gang. I don't want to say who just yet, just in case something falls through, but we're going to try and do another classic event commentary coming up very soon this week. So we're going to be watching a UFC pay-per-view main card, calling it, talking about it, and inviting you, of course, to watch along with us, as hopefully you did today. So I'm assuming neither Phil nor I has anything coming out. We'll probably have to wait for the UFC schedule to kick up again in order to motivate us to do that. But until then, we thank you very much for listening to this week's episode of Heavy Hands. Make sure you find us on Twitter if you would like to shout at us for disparaging your favorite fighters, or perhaps shame us for giving so very much romantic shine to Ben Henderson, every lady's favorite fighter, then you can do that on twitter.com. Phil can be found at Evil Greg Jackson, and I am at Boxing Bush, B-U-S-C-H. Make sure you check out our Patreon for that bonus content I mentioned. It will be coming out, I promise you. And until next time, if you all came here today for the finer points of face punching, you came to the right place. This has been Heavy Hands.